Right, this week's Ask GMBN. I'm in the woods because we're out riding and filming, and I thought, why not do it here? Perfect place for it, and it's just me this week, so I'm going to ask myself the questions and give you the answers. Loads of questions. Got first one from Tom Wom, who says, what are the advantages of a tapered head tube? Well, originally it was designed to fit the tapered steer tube, of course, of your fork, and that was all about designing a sort of a strong fork that's lighter weight, so that added diameter just gives it a bit more strength and stiffness in the steer tube, so just stronger. And of course then the head tube had to match that. You can get sort of straight head tubes at 1.5 to 1.5, but now it seems that everyone's pretty much settled on 1.5 at the bottom, 1/8 at the top, and that's just the way it goes. That's how bikes are designed. Next question, Evan Bird, what is the difference between a 100mm travel trail fork and 100m travel dirt jump fork? Well, the dirt jump fork is going to be stronger, so it's going to be heavier basically. So just the materials it's made of more than anything just means it's going to be probably bigger diameter, but more material to them on the steer tubes, and on the lowers probably just heavier basically. So really they're probably gonna be a little bit harder as well, the way they ramp up a bit more, because obviously they're made for different things. Like on a trail it's for taking up little bumps, on a dirt jump it's for big impacts. Okay, next question. Ty PURRENHAGE, I recently got my first full suspension bike, a 2020 Specialized Stump Jumper ST base model, and I was wondering if I should know anything about maintenance, washing and stuff. Nice one, that sounds really cool. I'm glad you got your first full suspension bike. Really, I would say don't go overboard. I'd try and keep it as clean as you can, so that means things like your chain, your drivetrain is just going to last longer. And it's nice to just wash the bike. I always think that once you've washed it, you've taken the time to look at it, and you'll notice things on it, like if anything's coming a little bit loose, like sometimes you'll see your swing arm bolts, things like that. Definitely do a bolt check after you've ridden it, but don't go crazy. You don't want to keep tightening the bolts every single time. You just want to check that they're sort of torqued up. You could get yourself a torque meter tool, but you don't necessarily need to do that. Just make sure everything's nice and tight. So drivetrain's clean, keep it lubed, and just check your bike over. We've done loads of videos, so here's one on how to look after your bike.
So there are no excuses for this one. How hard is it to leave one of these in the back of your car or within arm's reach of your back door? So as a general rule of thumb, 1 bucket is good, but 2 buckets is best. There's often water access at the trailhead, but if not, for that very reason, I take one of these with me riding. Well, I say riding, it lives in the back of my van. I like to use 1 bucket for clean water and 1 bucket for the dirty stuff. And you can also pretty much, a pretty basic but quite efficient way to spray wet and loose mud straight off the bike before you've even touched it with a brush.
Randy SOLBERG asks, he says, listening to you explain hubs made me think, which is more confusing, hubs or bottom brackets? Well, for me, it's bottom brackets. Hubs are fairly simple. You've just got a few different sizes. Boost is a thing. Everyone now makes bikes with boost, so forget about non-boost. Bottom brackets, I haven't got a clue. I tried to order one for one of my bikes the other day. There's press fits, BB30s. All I want is a threaded bottom bracket that I know my crank's going to fit in. Ben V says, we've seen plenty of examples of top riders going successfully between enduro and downhill, like Ed Masters, Sam Hill, Miranda Miller. Yep, there's plenty more on that list as well. Has anyone ever crossed over from enduro to cross country at the top level? I can't think of any really, to be honest. I know Tracy Mosley, she went from downhill, she was world champion at that, to enduro, winning lots of that Enduro World Series. And then she did go and race some cross-country World Cup at the very end of her career. And I think 29th was her best result, but I can't think of anyone going there really successfully. We've seen lots of cross-country racers come to enduro. Cecile Ravenel, who else? Katie Winton did that. It's definitely a longer list of those people. But here's a video about how fast cross-country racers are. We're in the south of France, a special facility, the French Federation's training facility built to replicate the XCO course at the 2016 Rio Olympics. It's got challenging single track, man-made rock gardens, short lung bursting climbs, only an elevation change of 150 metres, but it's either up or down, and there's no place for a lazy downhiller to rest. Next question comes from Vasi171992. I'm trying to index my gears, however my derailleur will not go any further when adjusting the high limit screw. The chain is stuck on the 11th gear and won't go down to the 12th. Got an XO1 shifter and rear mech. My first thing I check would be the cable. Sometimes if they're getting old and getting lots of friction, then it just won't want to drop down to that very lowest gear. Well, the very highest gear, I should say, but the one right next to the chainstay, just because the sort of spring tension of the mech, it always seems to almost reduce the further down the block it gets. So check the cable's not old, and the best way of checking that is just undo the cable from the rear mech. And if you've got it in the bike stand, so the cable's completely loose, spin the pedals, does it now go down to the bottom gear, then that's definitely your cable. Otherwise, it could be that your mech hanger's maybe a little bit bent, so go to the back of the bike and just look down it. Or even the B tension screw, you might want to play around with that. Sometimes the mech is too close to the cassette and it doesn't want to drop down. But yeah, start with the cable, then look at alignment of everything. Joe Herbert has got a question. Can I replace a 3-pole XD driver with a 4-pole XD driver? So rear hub, no you can't. It's just that's the way the rear hub is designed, either a 3 or a 4. So it's the case, if you really want it to go up to 4, of buying a new rear hub. But I mean, do you really need to? I think that's something that I like with, if I'm buying a set of wheels or getting a new set of wheels, I like the engagement to be really quick. So yeah, that's something I will look at, how many sort of, what do they call it, sort of how many times of engagement that rear hub has got. Matt LYON, or Leon even. What happens when water gets into the internal cable routing? Surely this either rusts the bike or leaves pools in it. Well, it depends on the bike. You'll see most bikes will have like a drain hole under the BB. They don't always work. Sometimes if you take your bottom bracket out, I've had some bikes where maybe the holes have got jammed up with mud and there is a bit of water in the bottom. So definitely in winter, when I'm riding in lots of wet conditions and washing my bike a lot, it's a nice idea to take your bottom bracket out occasionally and just check inside your bike, see if it's filling of water. Also, I quite like to run a full cable from my shifters to rear mech, so then water just can't get into the cable quite so easily. And that means your gear cable just lasts that little bit longer. We've got a correct me if I'm wrong from Peter, who's hitting this jump. Check this out. Rolling in good. Yeah, so you do a nice first bit of the jump, Peter. So talking about sort of pumping the bike in and getting the front wheel up. But then there's that sort of quite a common mistake that I talk about quite a lot. So you're actually trying to pick the rear wheel up and you're doing it with your feet rather than using your body weight. So you can see where your sort of legs almost bottom out and you hit your bum on the seat and then you can't go any higher. So rather than tell you what to do, I'm going to show you, because there's a nice jump down here. I can talk you through it. So what I'm talking about here is that good bunny hop technique of pump, then back to lift the front wheel, and then standing up and forward to lift the rear wheel. But what a lot of people do, like Peter, is do the first bit good, and then to lift the rear wheel, they just pick up with their feet. And what I'll show you on this jump, it's quite a long jump, there's not much running. I'll try and jump it at exactly the same speed, or as close as I can get, twice. One showing the technique of pulling up my feet, and what I'll probably find is I can't clear the jump. Even though my front wheel will land here, because I've picked up with my feet, all I've done is, the rear wheels just come up to me. It's not going to travel any further by getting higher into the air. So I'll do it again using the proper technique, and hopefully with a lot of weight movement on the bike, I should be able to clear the jump at exactly the same speed. Right, that's it for this week's Ask. It's nice to be out of the shed in the woods. If you want to keep watching, there's Martin rides the tandem with Blake, racing A-Line in Whistler, where they almost have the world's biggest crash. Click over there for that one. If you want to see me race this bike down the Garbanzo downhill, down there for that one. Thumbs up and hit that subscribe button.